Welcome to Marathon Champions, the podcast where running legends Benji Durden, Bill Rogers, and Ron Tabb share their timeless wisdom on marathon training and inspire listeners with their wealth of experience. These champions continue to impact the running world today.
Let me introduce our guest today. This is Jacqueline Hansen. She one of the pioneers in women's marathoning. And it'll be great to catch up. It's been a while since any of us have seen each other. So I guess I'd begin. You were saying that Cheryl would actually talk to you into going and running a marathon, and you hadn't even considered it, I guess, before that.
Correct. Correct. Do you want me to go?
Yeah, let's do that again, because the other guys weren't here. They didn't hear it.
When I started running, my first club was LA Track Club, and my coach was Laszlo Tabori. And one of my teammates, distance teammates, was Cheryl Bridges. And we ran 1 mile, 2 mile, 2 mile relay cross country, which was never more than a mile or two. But one year she said she was coming back to Culver City to run a marathon 2 weeks after our cross country season ended. And I thought anybody crazy enough to run 26 miles deserved a cheerleader. So my teammate, Judy Graham, and my coach Laszlo lived on the course. So he came and we all cheered her on. And that's the first marathon I ever watched. And it was the first time a woman ever ran under 250 and got a world record. And literally, I was hooked. I wanted to do that. I wanted to be like Cheryl. I thought she made it look so easy. She had a beautiful stride. She made it look effortless and easy and fun. And it looked like a lot more fun than getting on the track in an all-out mile, which is a battle. And so a year later, cross-country season ended again, and I sort of remembered that marathon, and I asked my coach if I could go run it. And I'm surprised he said yes, because his attitude was, you don't move up to the marathon until you're too slow to do anything else. And I thought for sure he was going to say no. And remember, he's kind of a disciplinarian coach. I was a grown woman, but I had to ask permission. And he said, there are some things you have to find out for yourself. And besides, you're the most stubborn runner I've ever known. So I think you'll go far. And I never knew whether he meant about 18 miles and drop out, or whether he meant, I see a distance runner in you. I don't know what he meant. He never would explain it. He always just laughed it off. I did it. It wasn't pretty. I'm sailing along at 7-minute miles till about 18 or 20. And the last 6 miles, I could have walked faster. It was a death march. So I'm one of those typical, didn't train for it, went straight from cross country to the marathon, and said I'll never do that again, never again, until they put that medal around my neck. And because Cheryl didn't show up, so I got to win. And I began to think, if I actually trained for this thing, I could do better. I knew I could do better. And then a friend of mine, I was telling Benji earlier that a friend of mine trained and ran for Yale, but he also ran a lot of Boston marathons. And he ran with Laszlo whenever he was home. And he said, wow, you won Culver City. You should go to Boston. This is the first year they've had a women's official division. And I actually said, what's in Boston? So off to Boston I go with him in April, and the rest is history. It launched my career, and I figured I'm not a miler, I'm a marathoner. But I started and ended my career with a mile. I did.
Jackie, was that your first marathon? It was Culver City?
Yeah.
And how are the conditions there?
What? Oh, the conditions?
Yeah.
Oh, always perfect. I mean, it's my hometown. It's like my hometown course. So very flat. Maybe one hill, but otherwise pretty flat. Our weather in December is always moderate. So that course is officially the Western Hemisphere Marathon. Used to be a
Yeah.
very big deal. It predates the LA Marathon. It was the second oldest marathon in the world next to Boston, and had a lot of tradition. It was oftentimes the Mexico Olympic trials or Japan Olympic trials. I mean, it was a big deal marathon. And 3 women's world records have been set there: Cheryl, me, Mickey. And I guess we should give credit to Mary Lepper, who's the first woman to crash that marathon back in the 60s. And I guess hers was a world record too. So actually 4 women's world records on that course. But you know what, Bill, it doesn't exist anymore. It didn't, when the world went professional, they didn't. And they just kind of died on the vine. And then the LA Marathon coming to town kind of was the last stab. So they didn't exist after about 2001. It's too bad because it had a lot of history.
I know what you're talking about. There's a famous race in Canada called the Springbank Road Race, which I ran back in the late 70s. Benji and Ron, I don't know if you ran
I
there.
knew of it. I wanted to run it, but by the time I got where I would have been invited, it was over.
It was
Prize
famous. I
money.
remember it.
It was a great course. All the top runners ran there. Shorter, Jerome Drayton, the great Canadian marathoner.
Kenny
But
Moore ran there.
Yeah, what's that, Benji?
Kenny Moore ran there. I remember seeing him running there.
Neil Cusack. Yep.
Cusack.
The runners of the day. I think Marit Shifter, when he moved to Canada, ran there, the great Ethiopian racer.
Yep.
I think what you're saying, Jackie, is, it was a good thing for the sport to sort of grow professionally, and we are still seeing that happen all the time, I think. Don't you think in different ways?
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, Jacqueline, so the Culver City 72 that you ran that the first time?
Correct.
Or your
Right.
first marathon. So it was one of the second oldest marathon in the US, is that correct?
Next to Boston. Uh-huh.
Next to Boston. Okay. So what was the organization like? Was the course marked off properly? Because when I started running marathons in 77, horses sometimes had some problems with being marked off properly.
No,
So,
they were very professional for being as amateur as they were. I think I grew up in a really good district for long distance running. We had a man named John Brennan who was way ahead of his time, as far as technology and accuracy, measurement, all of that, record keeping, everything. The man was way ahead of his time. And I happen to know him personally because he worked with my brother-in-law. And the 2 of them actually came up with a scanning system, much like we have today, chips. They should have patented it and been that person, but they were doing that way back in the day. John Brennan was actually he gave us all mnemonic numbers. I had like a canvas bib number with my initials, or sort of initials. It was HSN. If you were a local regular road runner, you had one of these canvas bibs, and he kept computer records on you. And he could put on Portsmouth start races, all different kinds of handicapped races, that would just, they were interesting. They were interesting, hard to explain, but like some of the starts would be such that everybody had a different starting time, and theoretically, if everybody ran their best, we'd all finish at once. I mean, he knew how to handicap races, and it was kind of fun that way. Course accuracy was a thing. We had course measurers. We had committees for that. We had committees for recycling our trophies. I recycled all my trophies. I didn't keep hardly any of them unless they were a sculpture. I have like Honolulu behind me, or a silver cup or something like that. But if they were just block and plastic and metal, I would just pop the plates off and turn in my trophies. So we were very advanced, and everything was very accurate, and record keeping was very good. But I think it was kind of unusual. It wasn't true in every region. But I think Pacific Association and the San Diego, the further south, I think all three of our associations in California were on top of things.
Was he involved in any races other than just the Culver City race? Because the name sounds familiar.
Oh, John Brennan was, yeah, he was all
part
over
of
that.
the AAU technical committee for a while.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think he was part of the group of people that came up with how you had to go through the process to certify a course. He also was important in course timing, race timing. He's one of the founders of the technical side of our sport.
And remember the hour run? He was in charge of the
Yep.
national.
You did the postal hour run. You sent it to him.
And he and my husband, Tom, were the co-race directors for the 84 marathon, the Olympic marathon in LA in 84. So yeah, no, he's greatly missed. He was a man ahead of his time.
Has there been any discussion of bringing Culver City back?
No, no, their own city council killed it. They looked at it as a revenue loss. And back, like I said, and I think the last one was about 2001. And I worked with a woman who volunteered to be the director and put it all together. They used to make her pay all the bills in advance and get reimbursed after if there was a profit. It was horrible. But I brought the Ekiden idea to her. I thought that might save it. Like, you'll get a lot more people who want to run on a relay team than to run the whole marathon themselves. And I thought that would boost registration. They didn't want any part of it. They just looked at it as a revenue loss and they just killed it. It's so sad. And added just a little sidebar story that recently happened. I mean, things aren't going well here in LA. I really need to get out of California, but with all the street thieves and the homeless and all these problems and all these issues, the permanent monument at the start-finish line was vandalized for its copper.
Yeah.
I'm not even kidding. And
we see that here in Boulder even.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So that's in the process. They're trying to figure out how to rebuild it so it can't be vandalized.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're going to do.
Unbelievable.
I mean, we had, Frank Schroeder has a statue that they had right outside the CU stadium as we'd come in for Boulder. And for whatever reason, one year somebody cut it off at the legs and hauled it off and hit it. They found it, but it's just,
this isn't just LA. It's a problem everywhere.
It's a problem everywhere. I don't know where you would go to avoid people. And that's what you'd have to do, is avoid people. You'd have to go out and be a hermit in the woods.
Well, I think I'll suggest the monument not be on the sidewalk, but it's in front of the Veterans Memorial Auditorium. I think maybe it needs to be inside.
That might be a better place for it.
Yeah. Whatever
maybe put a small plaque in the ground or something.
Something that, they're trying to figure out something that can't be vandalized.
Or easily vandalized. I don't know if you can have a non-vandalizable.
I don't know. Yeah, so sad, very sad. Well, I mean, like our names at Boston, our names are in the cement on the ground in the marble.
Mm-hmm.
But even that, I looked a little worn out because it's on the sidewalk and people just walk over it.
Yeah,
so it is a little worn out, but I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
That was John Hancock that did that sculpture in the ground, which was a fantastic day. It was when the women who didn't get their gold medals, who had won Boston.
Yes, thank you.
Finally given their medals.
Yes, we did. Yes,
the
mayor's reception and Guy Morse handed him out, but Gloria Ratty made it happen because I'd been kind of a squeaky wheel. I was kind of the anyway, the first, I figured there were 5 of us who didn't have those medals. Plus, they added Bobby and Sarah May. And you know what, Bill, that wasn't uncommon. I'm not blaming the BAA for not giving us medals when we won. It was very, very common in the early days, when it even happened at Culver City, which I won 3 times, they gave out a special medal to the first 10 bodies across the finish line. Well, of course they're going to be men. Of course they are. So if you weren't in the top 10, you didn't get that special medal.
Yep.
And, they still gave me, I got a laurel wreath, I got a trophy, but, I just didn't get that special medal. And, which to me, it was like an Olympic medal, right? And so, yeah, there we were on the 100th anniversary in 1996. Our names are in the monument at the finish line, and we got our medals. Sarah May
Jackie.
still thanks me for that. She still thanks me, but it
Gloria
was
did a
all
great
Gloria.
job.
Hey,
Gloria
was all
was
Benji,
Gloria.
incredible.
Yeah.
But I
did
wonder,
you get Benji? Did you get a special medal for
No,
third?
I've got a trophy, but that's all I got.
Yeah, I didn't. Jackie, I didn't get
So
a
it
special
wasn't the
medal.
top 10. I figured it was the top 10. Was it just the
Um,
No, I did for second, but not for third.
Oh, okay. Well, I always thought it was the top 10. That's what they did in Culver City. The top 10
Yeah.
got this beautiful medal. And my husband, the day I set the world record in Culver City, my husband shamed him into getting me one too. So, which
Yeah,
he
That's
I've
paid,
got a
which he
trophy. That's
paid
all.
for,
A
and
trophy and a tie
and
clip.
went and
Those are the
had
only
it
things I've
engraved.
gotten from Boston.
Uh,
so when you won Boston in 73, Jackie,
uh-huh.
I totally spaced out. I ran that race that day. That was my first ever marathon. I dropped out in the heat, but
Jack Welch reminds me that he and I both beat you,
yeah,
but I
I
beat him.
understand it. But I didn't realize even until now, sort of, that you didn't get a medal, because by then women were officially allowed to run marathons according to World Athletics,
But
who was
not
the super villain in
Not
this.
that medal, not that medal. They gave me a laurel wreath, which I just donated back to the BAA recently. And they gave me a trophy. Don't tell them I recycled it with the rest. And but not that special medal, the unicorn with the diamond in the eye. But I have that. I got that medal, but not until 1996.
Wow, frightening.
Yeah.
Our sport it's the biggest sport in the world, that and football, soccer, all over the world. But I think our sport's still growing up, and I think Seb Coe is doing a good job on that.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was just reading Rich Perlman's newsletter yesterday that came out, and Seb Coe he's going to town for us. And he just said, hey, we're the biggest draw in the Olympics. We're the biggest draw. Yeah, the
Yes.
winners are all going to get prize money. The winners are all going to get, we don't exist to carry out the IOC wishes. You exist because we are the biggest draw. And yeah, what did he say? $50,000 per winner.
They
For
never
gold
dropped
medal.
down to
Every
the
gold
top
medal is going to
10,
get
but whatever.
50,000.
And there is a new track meet he is putting on in Hungary, where the money's
Budapest,
going to be much bigger.
150,000
Yeah.
to each
Yes.
winner.
Yeah. And I just think that our sport, do you think the Boston Marathon, in New York, Chicago, the so-called majors, I mean, we've all run marathons across the US and around the world, so we know more about the sport than most people. And how the long struggle to make it a professional sport and equality for women. Of course, there are still many sports that are very well funded in the US where there isn't much done for women. You know what I mean?
Right.
And but I think Seb Coe is going to be the leader because he was an athlete. And that's the difference. We don't
Yeah.
need bureaucrats or people who don't understand the athletes in marathoning. We need the people like Gloria that understood marathoning. Gloria worked road races for years with her husband, Charlie, and this other couple before she got involved with the BAA. So we need that leadership. And I just hope that, I saw that $75 million was raised by fundraisers at Boston, and that's wonderful to see. But I always like to see the athletes get some respect. The way we see these other athletes in the Red Sox and the Patriots and the basketball players, the Celtics, making $3 million, $5 million, $10 million a year. And I wonder, I'm waiting for the first marathon to give out $1 million first prize to a man and a woman. Which marathon do you think it will be?
Ooh, good question.
Probably, I would say Japan is the best candidate because they revere marathoning.
That's
Well
a
said,
very good
Benji.
point.
Yeah. And I think you're right about that. I'm not really sure. I think maybe, New York and London are two of the biggest and maybe have the deepest pockets, I think, but it's going to be interesting.
Berlin also spends a lot of money under the table. And someday
Yes.
they might decide to put it more, although Berlin is also sort of a time trial marathon. Their focus isn't so much on a race as getting a really fast winner.
Yeah, you're right, Benji. I agree with that. It's a really good point. But I think by keeping things hidden, it kind of
It
diminishes
hurts.
in a certain way. I mean, the public likes to read about this baseball player being signed for $9 million a year, or this hockey player making
Yeah.
17 million. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
so
I
I
mean,
think,
we don't know what contracts are for track athletes. And I've seen some things that are just absolutely stunning about a sub 10-second 100-meter runner getting $1,500.
pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean that's pathetic.
Well, I've always felt that like golf, for example, is a good model. Like you could be 22nd ranked and still make a decent living.
Well, yeah, but look at what golf is. You don't play a round of golf without spending a good bit of money in general. I mean, it's where our sport is a pretty inexpensive sport for the most part. Although shoes have gotten expensive, but at the same time they haven't. Today we had a little donut run because today is Donut Day, National Donut Day. So we had a donut run, and ASICS was the sponsor of the little run. And so the ASICS rep was there passing out shoes for people to try out. And I've got a pair of Onitsuka Tigers that are at least 50 years old. They might be 51. I can't remember the exact year I got them. And I got them for about $20 when I got them.
Oh my, wow.
And $20 in 1974 dollars is $147 today,
Yes, it
which
is.
is not that off from what the kind of shoe I got would cost today.
Right. Right.
So I complain about the cost of shoes because anything above $100 seems to me to be a lot of expense. But the reality is, it's not that much different from what I paid, back in mid 70s.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
I know. I've been having sticker shock myself. Yeah, like I keep buying Hokas because they cushion my knees the best. And what am I spending? 150 every time?
Yeah, and that's not really that expensive when you compare it to what we used to have to pay when they first
Yeah.
started making running shoes.
Right, right.
I remember
you bring up,
Nike when they first came out with the waffle trainer, you could get them for about $18.
bring
And
up
I
a
think
point though
Nike
about the
said they
cost.
made them for about $10.
Well, I did manage a few running shoe stores in my day, and yeah, the markup was always 50%. Um, I I justify spending money on my shoes because I never had to buy running shoes my whole running career.
Yeah,
I never made prize money, but almost never made prize money and or appearance money or stipend contracts, but I never had to pay for equipment. From the day I started running, because Adidas took care of us. Adidas was ahead of their time in supplying women. You can look at any of my track pictures before I was a marathoner. Every woman on the track in every race, we all wore Adidas.
Hey, Jackie, did John Pinnell take care of you in Southern California?
Yes and no. John and John Bragg. I had two reps. John Pinnell.
Okay.
I know I went to his memorial. John Bragg and I had a little reunion up in Eugene at the 2016, I think 2016, and has since passed away. But no, John Bragg, I have pictures of him handing me new shoes as I'm donating my shoes to a museum, which is another whole story. So all my records were set in Adidas marathon model shoes. Those were my favorite shoes. I've
Wouldn't
actually
you-
been into I don't know if I'm saying it right, Herzen Generock. When I went over to Europe my first time, he got me an invitation to the Adidas factory, hotel, track. I had dinner with Adi Dassler and his wife.
Yeah,
I went home with a lot of equipment. Yeah, no, they were always very, very good to me.
that Adidas hotel was fabulous, wasn't
It's
it?
beautiful. Oh my God, all that teak wood and glass.
I just went back there a couple of years ago,
Oh,
and you wouldn't recognize the place anymore. It was very, no, it changed so much. It's kind of like the Nike campus now.
oh,
Well,
Yeah,
don't you
so,
think, Jackie,
but
Ron, that Adidas being a European country, Nike was a little bitty country back in the early 70s, something like that,
yeah,
The Europeans, I mean, athletics is bigger in Europe. That's the
huge.
birthplace of the Olympic Games in
Yeah.
Greece. So I think these factors play a huge role. They could understand track athletes. Track was big in the US. We're a big population, but I think, was it bigger in the 60s and 70s than it is now? I think the other sports have kind of
Yeah.
swamped us media-wise.
No, I mean, I remember before I had my own running career, I went to the Coliseum to a packed house to watch track meets. We had all-comer meets at Pierce College that were standing room only, and Olympians were there.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it would be like a really big deal. Every summer would be a really big deal to qualify for the finals of an all-comers meet. In August, you were like it was really something. It was a big accomplishment.
yeah,
If
we had this previous conversation about because you were up in Eugene at times, and the meets in Eugene for an all-comers meet was incredible. I mean,
Yeah,
Billy McChesney in an all-comers meet broke the American record for 5,000 meters in the stadium. There was probably 4,000 or 5,000 people at an all-comers meet. Mary, she set the world record in the 10,000 at an all-comers meet in Eugene. I mean,
yeah,
those summer,
we had Bob Seagren, the vaulter.
yeah, yeah.
We had all, and we had Jim
We had
Ryan
in
Coliseum.
Atlanta, Edmund Moses showed up and ran an all-comers meets in Atlanta. I mean,
You don't see this anymore though. That's
No.
I mean, don't have that. The sport has changed so much, and maybe in a negative way from that standpoint. I mean, it's great that we have the money in it for the top athletes, but if you are not in the top 10 in the U.S., maybe in the top 5 in the U.S., I don't know how they are surviving.
No, they
You know?
can't.
It's almost like it's gone back to being an amateur sport for most athletes.
That's why we need someone like Sebco, and he's
Yeah.
going to change it, I think.
well,
Stay
we
positive.
need a governor, a governing body here in the US that's doing.
I was just going to
too.
say that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we're lacking for sure.
I don't think they don't have anyone that understands what the struggles were like when we were running in the 70s, maybe the 80s. Like Bill said, we need someone that is involved in the sport, has experienced the highs and the lows of the sport.